how do you go about negotiating prices for your projects? For me personally, I have one thing that I maybe didn't always think this way, but I do now, and that is charge what you're worth. That's really abstract, that's really vague, so I'll go through it and kind of explain it and break it down. But just first and foremost, know you should always charge what you're actually worth. If you're first starting out and you have no experience, you don't know how to do, you've watched a couple tutorials, you have a camera, you have a light, but like you don't really have any experience, you haven't done anything professionally, I think in that situation, it is totally valid to work for free, to work for friends, to work for family members, to even get jobs for like really low pay if you don't actually have the skills that are like worth it. And how do you make that value call? I don't know. It's up to the individual, and I know that's a terrible answer, but you really have to look at the market, where you fit with other people, and what you think your services are actually worth. If you don't have a lot of experience, if you're brand new, I can tell you're probably at the lower end of the spectrum, versus if you've been doing something for a long time and you have a healthy body of work, you have a portfolio, you have a demo reel, you have a list of clients who would recommend you, well, then you know you have something of value to offer, so you should charge what you're worth, which to you is basically what is your time worth. And again, that's very subjective, that you have to figure it out and kind of do the math and like budgeting of like how many shoots are you doing, how frequently, what's your frequency, is it just you? Is there a crew involved? Like making sure everybody's paid, and then you have a little bit extra in case there's anything goes out of scope, and you can cover that. So there's a lot of variables to calculate, but it's just like budgeting and anything else. You look at it and you say, okay, what is this worth? Here's what I think it's worth. Making sure that all the math adds up, and you go from there. The one thing I would say that's really, really important is don't undervalue yourself for the sake of getting a job. You'll see this many times. People won't have work, and so a job will be presented, and they'll say, hey, can you do this? I don't have that big of a budget, so you kind of have to do it for like on the cheap. Can you do that and make something amazing? And then it'll be kind of like your foot in the door, and it'll be the first step. And there are times where you might roll the dice and say, yeah, it's worth the risk because I want to make this relationship, I want to establish this connection. But I will tell you, it's very, very risky and very dangerous doing that. And there's a very good reason for that. And here's why. If you say, let's use some numbers, okay? If you say a project is going to cost you $10,000 because of the amount of people that are going to be on it, the equipment you're going to need, how many days the project is, like whatever the scope of the project is, you equate it to being around $10,000 worth of work. And they say, we only have $1,000. Can you do it for $1,000? You might look at that and go, well, 1,000 is better than zero. So, and I need the money. So yes, I'll make it work and I'll take the $1,000, even though you have to cut so much out of it. You got to strip it way down. You've got to do the bare minimum just to kind of break even at that $1,000 range. But hey, 1,000 is better than nothing. And I got my foot in the door. That can be the easy kind of immediate logic that presents, or the incentive where you feel like, well, I really should do this just to kind of put some money in my bank account. I would strongly advise against that, because if something was going to cost $10,000 to give a good product, to make a quality result, and let's say they pay you $1,000 and you deliver something that's on the caliber of $10,000, well, now you've just set yourself up for doing that same level of work over and over and over again for $1,000. Like, hopefully you follow that. It makes sense, right? If you deliver something amazing and they only paid $1,000, they're going to say, great, here's another 1,000, do it again. Here's another 1,000, do it again. Here's another 1,000, do it again, right? 10 times they could do that before you even equal the one project. Now, these are kind of extreme examples, but hopefully it paints the picture for you. That's the one risk, that you deliver something amazing and they want more of it, and they're going to keep undercharging you every time. Because you can't say, hey, I did it for 1,000, but really this next time I need 10,000. They're going to say, you did it for 1,000 last time, why can't we do that again? The other risk on that flip side of that coin is, let's say you cut so much out, you do bare minimum, you deliver something that's worth $1,000 and is not the greatest and it's not the best, but it's okay, it's fine, you did the job, you checked the boxes, and they're satisfied. Like they're like, okay, great, good work, whatever. But like you kind of know that it's not your best work. They kind of know it's not your best work. Next time they're looking to do something for $10,000, they're not going to hire you because what you delivered wasn't good enough. And when they have the budget to use their $10,000, they're going to go give it to the person who's the professional, the real creative, the better person than, that guy we hired last time or that gal we hired last time. They weren't that great. We paid them $1,000. I think we need something better. Let's pay this other person $10,000. And that's how they're going to look at it. You undercut yourself and you delivered something lower quality, and then you hurt the relationship long term because now they don't trust you with the higher end work. And that's the other terrible outcome that comes from lowering your price and doing work on the cheap, is that the big projects that you want, that are worth it, that are profitable, that pay a crew to make compelling content, you lose out on it because you weren't able to deliver something that lived up to those expectations. In the first scenario, maybe you did, and then you're on the hook for doing that over and over and over again really cheap. On the other side, you actually deliver something that's worth $1,000 and then they don't want to work with you again because it's, in their eyes, maybe terrible. That's the risk you run. So I go back to what I said at the beginning. Charge what you're worth. If you're worth $10,000, you and your crew and your projects, charge that and stick to it. And maybe have some fluctuation up or down depending on the project and the specific details of, we're gonna have to hire a few extra people for this one, or this one we can actually get by with a little bit less, so we'll cut some costs there. But in general, kind of know where you sit so that if something comes in severely under, hey, this just isn't right for me. And hopefully you have some savings to where you aren't on the hook every project needing the money, needing the income. If you need it, I can't tell you not to take it because everyone's going to, right? If you need it, you need it, and you're going to work for $1,000 and you're going to put it in your bank account because you need it. But if you have the option, if you have the luxury, maybe it is a luxury, but hopefully you've built up some savings so that you have some money in your account to where you can afford to pass on the lower paying stuff so that you can actually work for what you're worth. Because that's the most satisfying. That's the best relationship, when you get to charge what you're worth and the client gets the product that they deserve. That is the win-win where both parties are happy. Any other way, and it's kind of a letdown on both sides. Now, that's not to say, don't overvalue yourself, right? Don't say, oh yeah, I'm worth $10,000 to take one photo or something like that. I don't know, maybe you are, but be realistic about it. Look at it. What are other people in the market charging for similar types of work? You can find this many different places online, people talking about how much day rates are for certain projects and activities, and it varies region to region, market to market. In certain areas, things are more expensive. In other areas, it's cheaper. So it's this huge scale and huge spectrum. But look regionally, what people are making, and then look at other postings online, like job boards, and there's web services where you can get hired to do different work like that, just like one-off kind of contract work. You can look at all that stuff and evaluate, okay, here's sort of where I fit. You know what gear you have. Are you shooting with a GH5 or are you shooting with a RED? There's value difference there in terms of just hard costs of what the equipment costs. Are your lights the cheap LEDs that are the cheapest of the cheap on Amazon, or are they more of a premium professional product that costs a little bit more, that have higher output, better quality of light? The whole kit determine some value, and then your own skill set, how long you've been doing it, your expertise. Experience is critical. Most people's skills come from experience. It's not like you can just watch a bunch of YouTube videos and all of a sudden you know everything there is to know. A lot of it is hands-on work. The more you work, the better you get and the more valuable you are in the long run, because a lot of it is problem solving, and you go into a shoot and something happens and you have to adapt on the fly, and the more experiences you have under your belt, the more used to that you are. When I first started out doing photo and video work, I didn't know hardly anything. It's I knew the camera sort of, and I had only done a few shoots, and it's everything was new. Now at this point, almost everything has been done before, and so it's that process of doing it better and better and better and better and refining it over time only comes with experience. that's valuable. And different clients value different things. Some people want someone with experience, other people don't have a lot of money to spend. The thing is, and the beauty of it is, there is kind of a marketplace for everybody where everyone can coexist. There are clients who have a lot of money that want to spend it on the best of the best. And there's clients that don't have a lot of money and they want to take a risk on somebody new, and that can be a great opportunity for you to get experience that way. There is so much out there, and it's constantly changing, as we all know, right? You have to kind of adapt with the times, but video, photo, content creation, these things are essential in business, in the digital landscape that we all kind of exist in. These things are very, very valuable, and they have different levels of value depending on who's receiving those services. So just evaluate yourself, know where you sit, and then when you're negotiating with those clients and you're saying, hey, this is what I'm actually worth, be okay if you have to kind of walk away and you have to say, hey, this project just isn't right for me. I don't think, maybe you recommend somebody you know of that maybe is in like the higher bracket or the lower bracket, depending on which way you want to send them. But you just can look at it fairly and reasonably, because most clients don't know necessarily, right? They don't know what it takes to do the work. They just want to pay somebody who does. And most of the time, they're basing it off of a budget. They have a set number on a spreadsheet somewhere. They say, we have this much money to spend. They just want to get the best they can for that price point. But if that's significantly lower than what it's worth to you, then pass on the project. Give it to somebody else who needs that experience, who needs to do the $1,000 project, right? If you're at that $10,000 project mark and they only have $1,000 because on their spreadsheet they say, hey, we only have $1,000, let the person who like $1,000, that's where they're at and it's worth it. That's the project they should be doing, because then the next time that client has $10,000, they'll come back to you and they'll say, hey, that really didn't work out that one time. Granted, it worked out the way it was supposed to with that person who's less experienced. They got the experience, they leveled up a little bit. But then the client will come back to you and say, this time we want to do this right. We want to do it a little bit better. This is more important to us. Last time we talked about this one price. Like, could you do it again for that same price? And you go, yeah, absolutely. And you deliver an amazing product because now you're getting what you're worth. And that's where you want to be. Again, there's gray area where if you need the work and you need the money because like you have to pay your bills and feed your family, like, yes, I understand all of that. I'm talking about kind of in a perfect world where you get to kind of pick and choose and you have control over what you're working on. Don't undervalue yourself. It's probably not going to ever work out for you in the long run. You'll either be on the hook for doing really high quality work for really cheap and no one wants to be there, or you're just going to underdeliver and they're going to pass on you for the next time in favor of somebody better. So just keep all that in mind, because it's an easy trap to fall in of saying, well, I'll take the money now for maybe some future payoff, but usually it doesn't work out that way. It's almost always better to charge what you're worth.